Hello everyone, friends in the industry, partners of ours, we appreciate you taking the time to join us today. We are going to bring to you, as part of our virtual learning and engagement outreach efforts to you, another addition to a series that we're going to do in two parts. So we'll do one today, and then we hope to see you again in 1 week, I believe on Thursday, July 20th. We can't drop all the secrets today. We got to leave you a little hook to come back, see us next week. But my topic, as the Director of Training here at Williams & Fudge, again, my name is Ruffino. I've known some of you from out on the road and at some of the conferences. We're going to talk about one of my favorite things to discuss with the folks in our industry that are on the front lines, that are in there with the consumers and the students, making the magic happen, actually bringing the money back to the institution itself, and that is negotiations in collections. This is a topic that you get lots of varying opinions on, and it's something that really comes down to it being a skill set. So we're going to break this down into two parts. This one here today, I'm really going to be asking you, how are you negotiating today? And a better way to phrase that could simply be, are you even doing negotiations today, right? You might not even be doing negotiations, so not even a matter of how you're doing it. So we might need to get you into a state of mind that you are actually engaging in negotiations, not just in business, but in all kinds of different aspects into your personal life. And then going into next week, we're going to be evolving the topic, and it's going to go into, are you asking the right questions? So we can't give you all the answers today, so if you want all the secret sauce and put all the puzzle pieces together, you're going to come back next week. But to focus on today, there's three main topics as far as how are you negotiating today that I kind of want to break down. And the first thing we'll do is get into something I've very recently started to talk about with our staff here, and specifically with some of our new hires and our candidates that we are looking to bring on. And I'll deliver for you here 4 words or 4 attributes that I believe are very helpful for us to think about either honing in on or going out and achieving and getting into our lives and into our daily habits that will help us in negotiations and in business and in general. After that, we'll get into some of the tools for success. How can you set yourself up for success as you go into negotiations before that conversation even starts? Things that you should know, tools and resources that you should have available to you. And we'll wrap up today's session with a little bit of a dive into some of the power phrases, words, and statements that are going to help you navigate through a conversation with your student, whether that's in person, on a phone, through email, chat, text, whatever it is, words and phrases that you can use that help move the situation towards resolution. So we aim to do that in 20-some minutes because as my experience in the training world, I know that your attention span is probably going to clock in just like mine, somewhere in that 20-minute range. So without further ado, we're going to get it rolling, and I'm going to start with 4 words or 4 attributes. And I'll just kind of remind us and remind myself when I use the term attribute, let's give you an official definition. So it is a quality or feature regarded as a characteristic or inherent part of someone. So is this something that is inherent to you? Do you already have these attributes, or can you be open-minded to go out and work on these attributes? And I know I'm delaying what these 4 words are, so you just have to keep walking with me. So in the last 9 or so months, I've really started to discuss this when I interview potential new candidates or folks here early on in their career, to really make sure that they understand that part of this job is you should be open-minded to entering into negotiations. This is a natural part of our world and our daily life. It happens countless times where we probably don't even realize it. Little microtransactions, little decisions in our head, little conversations with people we come across, negotiating with ourselves all the time. We're doing it, and you don't even realize it. So you're already probably pretty good at it. But this is, now what do I do in a business standpoint? And how can I be effective and successful? So we look to see if our candidates have this, and we plant these seeds in our new hires to make sure that they're thinking about, am I achieving these things? So the first word I want to say to you that is so vital entering into negotiations, and certainly in the world of collections, it's real simple. It's just the word and the attribute of confidence. And I want you to think about a situation where you've maybe entered into a negotiation, or maybe even an argument, and your confidence was kind of low. How did that negotiation end for you? How did that argument go for you? Now, let's be clear, when I say argument and negotiation, they're two very different things. Negotiations is going to be two or more parties trying to work together to come to a common ground where all parties are happy and appeased and a resolution is achieved, right? So we're not talking about winning an argument. We're trying to talk about people getting on the same page and having a happy ending here. So as you go into that, I want you as a person to not enter into your business life with any level of self-doubt. So confidence comes in a few forms. It is confident that you know the laws, confident that you know the policies and regulations of your institution, confident that you're well-versed on all things higher ed. You're even confident that the folks in the financial aid office are doing their job correctly for you, right? Because oftentimes you're speaking to students after they've come from the financial aid office and received information from them. You're confident in your institution's policies. And even if you're not, you can project that you are confident, because when you're in these conversations with folks, they're going to feed off of what they're hearing from you. They're going to be able to see if you're not confident. They're going to be able to hear if you don't know what you're talking about. And people who are savvy in negotiation or conversation, they might be able to take advantage of you. So you want to just present yourself that you know what you're talking about. We've all made it this far in life. We're making some good choices, right? And I just want you to have self-belief, because from a training perspective, when you come into the job, it's not very easy for an employer or your coworkers or others in your life to give you confidence. You kind of have to make that choice yourself. So I'm encouraging you to just be super confident when you speak, because the second word and the second attribute is to be a conversationalist. And that's probably the number one thing we look for when we interview folks, is can you drive a conversation? A conversationalist means you are willing to ask open-ended questions. You're willing to prolong a conversation. A conversationalist would not do this. The student says, oh, I can't pay today, I'm unemployed. And then us on the other side of the aisle say, okay, well, thank you for letting me know. I'll update your file and we'll contact you in a few weeks. And that's not a conversationalist. A conversationalist knows, hey, that's okay, I understand. Thank you for making me aware of that situation. Let me ask you a couple questions, and you drive that conversation. So I tell our folks too all the time, it's okay if you're introverted outside in the real world and in your personal life. That's perfectly fine. That's no one else's business. But when you step into the job of collections and negotiations and you're trying to make deals with folks, you really kind of need to be extroverted and just put on a different hat for a while and kind of have fun with it. So you're either already today naturally a good conversationalist, or it's something that I'm going to ask you or tell you that you need to open your mind up to and start to work on that. You can find opportunities everywhere. I mention this all the time. You're at the grocery store, you're someplace doing business, or the bank. Just ask the person behind the counter a couple questions. You'll make their day. When you're in a social situation, maybe you just want to be in the corner and hope no one notices you and you're on your phone, and hey, that's totally cool. But if you want to get good at it, get power statements and power questions and put them in your back pocket. Start with just one. So if I'm talking to you, we get to that awkward silence, I can go to my back pocket, and the best way I can be a conversationalist is to get you talking about you. That's the easiest thing I can do. I can throw you a little toss-up question that's open-ended, that's going to get you to talk about you, right? You're almost forced to answer my questions, and then once you kind of give me a response, I can build my responses and layer in those questions. So being a conversationalist really just means you're open to and you're willing to drive a conversation, a dialogue. You're going to ask intriguing questions, open-ended questions. You're going to kind of hold them accountable, but you're not going to just give up on the conversation because you don't feel like talking to someone. Our job is to win people over with the power of our words, right? At the end of the day, what are we really doing? We're not forcing them into any kind of a financial transaction. We're using persuasion, trying to use my neuro-linguistic programming and my Jedi mind tricks and all that fun stuff that gets into the next level of being a conversationalist. But I just want to have a good conversation with you as a human being. And when I get into some of those words that work, we'll definitely expand on that. But just talk to the people you're in front of. They're going to see that you're making that effort, not being short with them, and you're giving them that time. So we will expand on what a conversationalist means as we go. Now, those are two things that I just referenced, confidence and conversationalist. Those are true attributes that you can work on and look for opportunities to build on. The other two I want to give you is more informational and knowledge that you can keep in the back of your mind to help you more on the mental and emotional side of this job that what we do. And the first word is perspective, okay? And you need to have a proper perspective. In our world of needing someone to fulfill a financial obligation, there's oftentimes resistance, confusion, and, well, we know that people just don't pay their bill. That's kind of why agencies like ours exist, right, to help when that situation happens. So I've seen too many really good folks come into this industry and not let it come to fruition because they did not have a proper perspective on what the job really is. And the way I try to break it down is, let's say you have 10 conversations today, 10 really good conversations with a student that owes your institution money. And, or I would say the same to our collectors. You have 10 conversations with the consumer. How many of those 10 today is a key word, are realistically actually going to process a payment today? And you get all kinds of answers from 1 to 10. And I laugh at the people who say 10 because you'll be doing quite well if you get 10. But the real answer is going to fall somewhere, potentially somewhere between 2 or 3 out of 10 people might, if you do a good job and the stars align, might pay you today. So that means you might not get paid 7 or 8 times out of 10. And if you don't understand that perspective, you're going to be telling yourself that you're failing in negotiations, that you're not doing well on the job. It can easily beat you up mentally and emotionally. We have this conversation with our folks sometimes to let them understand, you have X number of payments today, you're doing awesome. It is not realistic that you're going to get 10 out of 10 people to pay. So understanding that it is a numbers game. I don't like to directly correlate collections to sales, but let's be honest, there's so many similarities between those two practices that it's okay to make some correlations. And ask anyone in the world of sales. You have to be comfortable in hearing the word no, I can't, or I won't. But as long as you understand the perspective that that is today, that was what the outcome was. But as we learn the perspective, I know that we might not get paid today, but we are setting ourselves up for a great outcome tomorrow, next week, or next month. Perspective. Okay, the last word, and then we'll move on. It's actually 2 words. I'll put the word persistent, small n in parentheses, but the real word is going to be patience. Okay, and it just came from the perspective. If I'm not getting paid today, but if I'm doing a good job in my conversations and in my negotiations, I know that I can build in some patience to know that this student, this consumer, the seeds I'm planting in their head, they're going to grow, and it could be next week or next month, and I know that I've set the table for a later conversation, and I'll be patient with that. But the persistent side means I'm not just going to sit back and wait for things to happen. I'm going to formulate follow-up plans. I'm going to set expectations. We're going to keep our outreach efforts with that student well intact and on time. But I'm patient in the process because I know, especially when you're dealing with a student, a young person in life, and they owe, you name the number, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, that's a major deal. It's a very stressful thing for them to think about. It might need a little bit of time for them to figure out where that money is coming from. By the way, in part 2 of this series, we're going to talk a lot about tools that you can use to discuss where that money can come from, but leave you on the hook for that. All right, just to recap and we'll move on, those 4 attributes that I think are super powerful and very achievable for any one of us to go out and get to help us in real-world negotiations and obviously in the business side of collections is be a confident conversationalist that absolutely understands the perspectives, and you allow yourself to have patience and allow the consumer to have patience. I hope that made sense. It makes sense to most of our collectors, and when they adapt to that, they tend to do really, really well. So moving on. All right, next thing we want to do is, and if you realize here, we're really just kind of setting the table up for success here, and I'm not even getting into do I start high, do I start low in negotiations, do I make the first offer? All that stuff is going to unfold. We're not even in that conversation with the student yet, so I want you to be confident, right? And so to be confident, you have to set yourself up for success, and that is what tools can you provide for yourself, what tools or resources should your institution, your department be supplying for you? What kind of things should you and your coworkers be working on so you have at your disposal, right? When you're in that conversation with somebody, you want to be able to grab that information as fast as possible. You want to know where that resource is. You want to be that person that has the answer to almost every single question. Of course, you don't need to have the answer to every question, but when you are able to project that you are the person of knowledge, that's when people start to think, I don't need to speak to a supervisor. I don't need to go get the manager, right? maybe you're the one that's providing all that information, and you are in that position of resource, of accountability, and of knowledge. So the more you know and the more you're prepared, the easier it is to be confident, the easier it is to be a conversationalist. So what could some of these things be? It could be as simple as you knowing exactly where your institution policies are or where you can access them or refer to them, such as, are we even allowed to offer settlements? If so, what is the range of percentages? Do I need to keep my payments at a certain amount? Is there a certain time frame? Do we only accept certain forms of payment? Things like that you know off like the back of your hand, no hesitation, that you're ready to answer for that student right away. Also, things I know in different states, the laws vary and there's a lot of moving parts in this, but does your institution still have policies that reference transcripts, re-enrollment, registration, diploma, releasing or accessing those kind of services? So of course, I don't want to speak universally on that. That's obviously very dependent on your state and your institution, but those things do still exist out there. So know what those policies are so you can be the voice of authority to your student when you let them know that this is the answer to your question. Other things, other kind of resources is, how are you allowing your students to submit payment? You know, we hear these buzzwords all the time now, and I'm glad we're hearing them. And it's about being a consumer advocate, consumer friendly, user interfaces. All of those things are designed to help make things easier for the consumer, which is your student, which is also us. We like to, more often than not, or a lot of us like to, have the option of self-service. So I know a lot of these things are moving. Your institution might be working on these things, but know what kind of options your student has. Maybe they think they can only pay you cash over the counter. Let them know about your online website. Do you have other different various methods of payment that you can accept? And the easier you guys can make it for your students, the more likely they're going to be able to pay for you. So know where all those resources are. Make sure you're ready and prepared to show them or to hand off to them all the different various ways that they can communicate with you or they can submit payment to you. So if someone is saying, you know, today, I don't want to give you payment information over this phone, you don't have to get into an argument or resistance. You're ready and prepared to give them an alternate solution that's going to meet them and make them happy. This also means at your disposal. I use the term payment calculators, and that can come in various forms. Really, it could just be an Excel spreadsheet or something where the student offers you an amount, a monthly installment, and you can plug it into one of the cells on the spreadsheet, and it's just going to start to spit out a whole bunch of monthly amounts or settlement amounts, but it's making it so you don't have to crunch numbers or, you know, kind of wait and pause or overly think things on the math side with the student in front of you or on that phone waiting to hear your response. Have some sort of a payment calculator that makes it very simple. You owe $2,000. If you only want to pay $40 a month, and it spits it all out, right? It makes it very, very simple for you. Takes the guesswork out. You can find various versions of these absolutely for free all over the internet. Just get the Google hit up and you'll find it. Or you or someone in your office can make one of these in a matter of a few moments with the most basic of Excel formulas. So get yourself a payment calculator. One of the things that we will definitely cover in part 2 of this next week, it gets into money resources. Are you asking the right questions? And one of the things we've really adapted into here in the last few years is being very well versed on the different resources that are out there that the student could take advantage of. Different alternate lending programs, maybe some 529 money, all these kind of things where that money can be accessed. When they have no clue how they can come up with $5,000, well, it's okay, I have a few ideas for you. So having those tools available, and we'll deep dive into that on part 2. All right, tools for success help you be a confident conversationalist. So if you have them, great, actually use them. If you don't, start to talk to people in your office, start to talk to those that kind of run the show and say, hey, what do I got to do to get some access to this information? All right. Now, the last thing we'll cover today gets into words that work, words that we know work, phrases and kind of mentalities that say we are negotiating and I'm trying to make you happy and I'm trying to solve this problem for you. So what can I do that helps draw us closer to that final resolution that puts you and I on the same team, not against each other, and we can greatly influence this. This is soft-sided neuro-linguistic programming. This is finding a way to build a rapport with your consumers. So at the top, again, we'll get into this more next week, but at some point in the conversation, you ideally are going to ask them for payment. Ideally, you'll also ask them for payment in full. Negotiation 101 is going to tell me, If I really want to get the balance in full, I should start high because that's going to leave me room to meet the consumer where they need to go. It's very hard to negotiate up, so always start high. But the point is I should start with something along the lines of, let's go ahead and help you get this resolved today. Resolved today does not mean it has to be a payment in full. Resolved means we're moving forward. We made progress, okay? So I want you to ask that question in your own words and in your own way, but that's obviously asking for payment. Now, if the student is unable to pay, then that's where this next conversation is going to unfold. If they whip out the credit card, then happy days, presentation's over, the job is easy. But we know that's not the case because we're dealing with 2 or 3 out of 10 who might be prepared to pay today. So I'll assume that you are asking for payment or resolution, and let's just assume that, of course, they're not quite ready to do that yet, right? They're either unable to pay, they're unsure about the situation, they're disputing it, they're upset about something, and we're going to deep dive into those questions that we should be asking. But let's start with, maybe they make an offer to you. Maybe they do owe $5,000. Maybe they're trying to get back into school. Maybe they offer the classic $25 or $50 a month. The one major takeaway out of this section I want you to remember is never give the illusion that that's a bad offer. Never say to them, no, we can't do that, or that's not enough, because at that point in time, they gave you a win. They gave you a very big positive that said, I am willing to resolve. I am not disputing or arguing. I'm willing to give you money. In reality, we know that that specific amount is not going to be very ideal for the balance that is owed. But I do not want to give them a negative. I will say thank you for that offer, and then we'll go into some of these more words that work. But I like to say that off the bat. Never kick someone when they give you a low offer or a bad offer. Always thank them, and say, hey, thank you for that offer. I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and I'll see if I can get you close to that number, okay? All right, so 3 kind of steps to thinking about words that work, and a good mentality for you with that is, this is a student who is telling you, I can't do this, I'm not sure how to do that, here's my situation, here's what I have going on, here's why I have not paid. And what you want to do as a great conversationalist is someone who also is really, really good at listening. In fact, use those 2 ears in a ratio to your 1 mouth. Listen more, talk less. So a great conversationalist will hear when someone is telling us things that are going on in their world, circumstantial and situational items. I want to validate what they say. Validate or acknowledge what they say. People want to be heard. Sometimes in our role, someone needs to vent to us. Just let it happen for a moment or 2. Look them in the eye, give them acknowledgments, give them audio clues if you're on a telephone. But what you want to do is validate that you heard what they said. You again, not beyond the physical, the shaking of the head, but here's a couple of phrases that you can use that are going to absolutely help build that rapport and build that trust, and they're going to see that you're someone that's actually trying to help them, not rush your way through the conversation or bulldoze your way through that conversation. So they tell you something personal, they tell you a reason why they can't, or something that's going on in the world, you gotta acknowledge and validate that. My 2 favorite words that I tell everyone that you should be using all the time is simply, I understand. It doesn't mean I've been in your shoes, doesn't mean I've literally had that situation, but it just means I understand what you're saying. That makes them know that you heard what they're saying, and I'm validating that. Thank you for sharing that with me. I understand. If they ask you a question, tell them, that's a really great question. I understand why you're asking that. Let me get you the answer. If they're explaining something that you can quasi-relate to, connect with them, build that rapport. I've been in a similar situation, never the exact, but I've been in a similar situation to you, and I understand your concern, and I believe I can help you through this situation. So you validate what they've said, you repeat something back, you acknowledge it, you give them a phrase that says, I'm with you, I'm on your same page, we're here to build rapport, that draws them in, and it's going to make coming to that solution a whole lot easier. All right, after I kind of validate whatever they're telling me, their reasons why, again, this is all negotiation, this is all persuasion. We're not even maybe dropping numbers yet or getting into some of that nitty-gritty. These are things that you should be doing from within that are helping bring you guys towards that resolution, and they might not even know it's happening. They don't even know it's happening. This is why you get into, they call it neuro-linguistic programming for a reason. After I kind of validate and acknowledge them, I want to then start to plant seeds, ideas and thoughts in their head, and I want to make these as positive as possible. I want to assure them, if I know that we're not getting paid today, no matter what, you're going to be today one of those 7 or 8 out of 10. That means I have to prepare us for another conversation. And nothing negative should be coming out. Everything should be positive and solution-oriented. So when I plant a seed of positivity, there could be a couple of things like, I'd like to help you take care of that. Based on what you just said, I have great news. There's this alternate lending program that will get you out of this situation, something like that. I am confident that we can solve this. And in doing so, I'm going to be using a lot of inclusive words that are not just saying me or you, but us, we, let's. We're working on this together. I'm going to propose some solutions, and I might need you to lend us a hand and help us out as well, because we're both tied into this. So acknowledge what they're saying. Plant positive seeds of, I'm confident we're going to be able to get this resolved. Show them the light at the end of the tunnel. Don't let this stress you out too much. I know we're going to help you get this taken care of, okay? People have a hard time arguing when you're being positive and being helpful and you're trying to provide solutions to them. All right, the last thing we'll get into then here is using action statements, right? This is setting up in negotiations. Next week, we're going to go into more of the questions that are going to help you get more paid today, or find the money resources and asking those kind of questions. But when I talk about these action statements, it is in reference to we're negotiating, and the majority of the time, I'm not getting paid today, right? That is the real world negotiation. So in my negotiations today, I'm setting that table. So my action statements to you. So we're getting towards the end of this chat, and you and I, as the student and the collector, we might be getting towards the end of our conversation. I'm going to give you some action statements. I am confirming to you that I am invested in this with you, and I am going to contact. What I am going to do is, I'm going to research this. I will walk you through how to do X. And what that's doing is showing them that I'm invested in their situation, and I'm saying, I'm going to go and do something for you. But in the meantime, I need you, student, to go and talk to mom, go and talk to dad, go and come back, research this and come back with this information, because we are going to talk next week at this time, and we're both going to have completed our action statements, and we'll come back closer to resolution. So it's really just saying, I'm bought in with you, I'm invested with you, I am going to do something on your behalf, and it makes it really, really easy for you to ask that student to do something as well, and it'll make it harder for them to say no or to not do the thing that they are expected to do. All right, looking at our time here, folks, we want to get you out of here and wrap this up. So just to kind of summarize what we talked about, we're really just setting the table today and working on going into business and personal negotiations, where if you can build those attributes into your life of being a confident conversationalist, who always keeps in mind the perspective of real-world negotiations and allowing both parties to have patience, then you are going to be able to move forward as you use your tools of resources that you've set up for success to deliver powerful words and statements that are going to bring you closer and closer to resolution, and you're going to increase those probabilities, no doubt, and make for happier interactions, and you'll be a lot lighter on your feet at your job. So next week, again, Part 2, Thursday, July 20th, we're getting into Are You Asking the Right Questions? We'll expand on everything we talked about today. And the most important part of this discussion here today, I want to drop you with this. Did you know? Once again, Williams & Fudge is so excited to be hosting our SLRCC conference on Sunday, September 24th, concluding on Wednesday, September 27th at the beautiful Hilton Myrtle Beach Resort. If you're already registered, good for you. Looking forward to seeing you. If you haven't, talk to your folks at your institution. Go to the website slrcc.com. Get yourself registered. Let us know if you have any questions. It's an absolutely gorgeous resort. I had my family of 4 over there in Myrtle Beach a few weekends ago. There's so many incredible, wild things you can do on the entertainment side. It's absolutely incredible. But we really know you're coming to network with us and have a great educational opportunity. So take that into consideration, slrcc.com, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks, folks, and have a good day.